So welcome to another Big Mish movement episode workshop. Today we are doing knee pain management because I know knee pain can be a very stubborn thing. It's a thing that bugs a lot of people, and it can be a little bit of a complicated thing to manage because there could be multiple things going on. So what I'm here to do is provide some clarity and give you some management strategies so that hopefully your knee pain will go away and you can enjoy your workouts or your runs or whatever it is that you need that's hindering because of your knee pain. So let's kind of get into what are the things going on, because it's very important to understand that more often than not, knee pain will be an overuse issue followed by an alignment issue. And actually, maybe I should have said an alignment issue probably because of overuse. However, it could also be alignment because of overuse from the other side. So therefore, for example, if your body is very lateralized and shifted to the right, you might be experiencing left knee pain. But that's because of overuse on the right, and so your left knee never has that true symmetry to move in its free range, for example. Or it actually could be you have a right knee pain because you're shifted to the right and you're overusing it right. And there could be many different things, but if we wanted to absolutely simplify so that you guys could understand and then take care of your knee pain and all that, we're talking about an alignment issue, an overuse issue. So we have to strengthen what's weak. And as far as an alignment, can't be too simplified. There's different things we could talk. There's different aspects here. Front to back alignment, quad to hamstring length tension relationship. That's a big one. But it also could be the alignment of your kneecap. So that's your inner and outer thigh, kind of pulling your kneecap. Or it could be the alignment of your hips, and that's kind of like the first example I was talking about how you shifted to one side. So if your hips are off the line, it's going to cause some problems there. Ultimately, it's going to stem down to a weakness or a lack of reciprocation and alternation that is happening. And why? Because if you're stuck in one position, you're obviously not able to go back and forth, and that's why we have quote-unquote alignment issues. We're basically stuck to that side. So that's part of what strengthening it is, and that's part of what some of the exercises we're going to go over is so that you can bring back that balance, bring back a little bit of reciprocation, bring back a little bit of alternation, and that's how you're going to be able to manage your knee pain. And more importantly, just to understand some of these mechanical issues, because the knees, as they're connected to the quads, are very easy. First of all, they're how can I say this? They need to move well, and they get used a lot. However, throughout our movement, we overuse the muscles that are attached to their knee. Yet there are other ways to move more sparingly. What am I saying? Basically, we're not using enough hips. So we move forward, or whatever it is you want to do. You work out, you go on hikes, or just even if you're sedentary and don't do any of that. The fact that we have to be forward progressing and get up and down out of chairs and up and down off the floor and whatnot. You're going to use your quads eventually, just to basically how it moves and extends your body and moves you forward. However, our hips are probably the biggest, most powerful movement source in our body. What happens is that we just don't have good enough hip function. It's hard to use our hips. It's easier to use our backs. It's easier to use our quads. So those two major muscle groups usually end up taking a lot of the load. Our hips, aka our glutes, our hamstrings, are harder to tap into, and therefore more inclined to become lazy. And that is probably one of the biggest sources of knee pain. If we wanted to simplify it, is lack of hip strength, lack of hip control, lack of the ability to reciprocate and alternate because your hip's stuck one way, and so therefore maybe the quad or knee of the of the other leg is just working extra hard to just move you forward because you're not centered. And that starts with the hips, and obviously because the hips are the centerpiece of our body. You might have heard it before, hips and core, but it really is kind of just as simple as that. Core for lower back and upper body issues, hips for lower body issues. So let us get into what can we do to manage our knee pain. I already see some questions coming through, but I will come back to it in a bit. Yes, some good questions. I will come back to that. But long story short, we want to have strength on both sides that are equal, that can, like I said, I'm going to be a broken record, reciprocate and alternate. Very important. I think one of the biggest mistakes we make when we're training the lower body is we train 2 feet at the same time. We do everything with 2 hands and 2 feet at the same time, and then yet when we move, something different's happening. And so that's a big part of how your training should reflect that. Better yet, how do we warm up and prepare for that? Because I'm not really going to go over necessarily exercise, strengthening exercise today, more movement preparatory exercises. So let's kind of get into that. First thing you'll need is a foam roller, because one of the most important things we want to do when managing our knee pain is managing the muscle tension. Very important, kind of paramount. I don't do this all the time still because I have pretty good length tension relationship. It doesn't bother me. But for some of you who have already got some knee pain and already don't have that glute hip function that we need, you're probably going to have a lot of built up tightness from the over dominancy in our quads. So that's why it's a nice idea to roll these out. First off, to just ease off that tension. Plus, especially if you got knee pain, we got basically a lot of tension here, or even inflammation, because why? Just basically a lot of tension and overuse in our quads. So grab your foam roller. This is what we're gonna do to get sort of rid of some of these knots or whatever. First things first, just kind of roll up and down the quad. I'm going kind of fast, but I encourage you to slow down and go a little bit slower. Okay, I like to go up and down a few times, maybe 2 to 3, and try to find any knots or bumps or anything like that you might feel. You might not have any, but either way, just sort of stop at your most or dense spot, especially if you find a knot, which is basically what I mean by dense. Stop right there. We're gonna hold it on this spot. Usually a minimum of 5 seconds, but you want to go at least 20 to 30 seconds. That will allow the tension to dissipate. If you've got knots in your quad, that's definitely affecting your knee pain or knee alignment, for better yet. After we've done this hold, this is what we're going to do. We're going to pulse up and down on the spot 10 times. These mini pulses. Now we're sort of kneading out that area, creating a little friction, per se. After your 10 3-inch pulses or 2-inch pulses, hold it on that spot and bring your heel back and straighten it. We'll go 3 times. This is a nice little pin and stretch. You're holding it on that knot. Look, heel back, straighten out. One more time. There you go. All right, let's just go to the other side real quick, okay? There are other devices you can use. You can use a hammer machine, of course, if you have one. If you don't even have a foam roller, stretching works. That's fine too. The best is usually to get a nice release with a stretch. And then most importantly though, is don't rely on releasing muscles to get rid of your knee pain. The pain is coming from somewhere, and I said it usually comes from an alignment issue, but it's usually a signal for help. So how do we provide that help? Well, this is sort of step 1, but you gotta go through the next steps. Step 1 is to ease off the tension. That's just to provide relief. But to solve the problem, as we go through our pulses, To solve the problem, you're gonna need to do a little bit of rebalancing, a little bit of strengthening, as I'm gonna go show you, and as we go through a little bit of reciprocating and alternating hip movements. Bringing it back, 2, 3, good. All right. So an important thing to cover, and actually at this point, I am going to look at these questions just because somebody asked a really important one about our glute medius. I'll come back to the dynamic stretching one. Matt, you're firing away with some questions here. Okay, first one you asked is how to build, develop elasticity, Hooper, strength training. So glute medius and knee pain, that's the one. Yes, does strengthening the glute medius help with knee pain? Yes, it does. So that leads me to my next point, because we often get a lot of pain, tension along the side of our quad. Typically, that area is called your IT band. Very common. We got a lot of discomfort there. And what's usually happening is it's pulling on the actual kneecap, so causing some discomfort there, or sometimes just the whole thing just feels super tight. This is what's important to understand. Yes, we can release along this area. However, the IT band itself will never ease off in tension. If that is what's actually feeling, you can't really miss it. It's just this tight band here. Those are attached to two muscles up here, your glute medius and your TFL, tensor fasciae lata. Those might need a little bit of releasing, but there's also a chance they might need strengthening. So I'm not even going to go into rolling the side of your quad. We definitely might want to get some of our lateral quad if we got some knots there. But as far as the IT band itself, you don't want to put a lot of pressure on that, and it's never ever going to ease up ever, because it's of the way it's made. You have to address the hip. So what are some ways we can do that? Well, we're not going to release the hip today. We're going to talk about strengthening, because that's basically the better way to manage knee pain, is to strengthen. And we'll talk about hip another day. So now that we've eased up the tension, let's help some of this alignment by bringing back some of that hamstring tension to help, because they're opposition of each other. If this is your thigh, quads on one side, hamstring on the other side, you've got a lot of tension on one side, you just mellowed that off. That means the other side is probably a little bit overly lengthened. We want to bring some of that tension back. You're actually going to use your foam roll for this. This might be a little bit challenging, but if not, you can just use your chair or any sort of elevated, object or anything like that. Okay. So you're going to use the roller to put your heels on. We're going to arm reach, and we're going to lift our hips off the floor. Now you can use whatever distance you want. I recommend do not lock out your legs, and I recommend that starters bring it in so you got a little bit of knee bend. The more knee bend, the more your hamstring can engage, not necessarily in a easier way, but if you want to start and really make sure you nail it in, bring it in to 90 degrees and then hips off the floor. We're going to go arms reaching up, and then we're going to take one knee off, exhale, put it back down, breathing in, inhale, take the other knee off, exhale, put it back down, inhale. Okay, walk it out, roll it out if you want a little bit more intensity, but remember, keep that slight bend in your knees. It's very important you keep the slight bend in your knees. Don't go all the way extended out. Okay, so walk it out to whatever pressure you feel is good enough for you, so your hamstrings get a walk. You're going to go 3 and 3, or maybe even 5 and 5. I'm only going to go 3 and 3 for now. Okay, hips off the floor, arms reaching, Inhale, exhale, knee back down. Inhale, exhale, knee back down. Check your distance, make sure it's the same, that you're not rolling out further and further out or further and further in. And make sure you're on your heels too. We got 2 more each side. Inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale, and last one, inhale, exhale. Very good, very good. I would encourage you to walk around after that, because many of us don't really train hamstrings in an alternating fashion, but that's what's going to do you a world of favor, and because that's how they have to function. So as much as we want to train hamstrings one at a time, or as much as we want to train hamstrings, and it's beneficial to do them both at the same time, one at a time is always a little bit more favorable to our mechanics and to how it's going to help our hip move well and healthily. So now we got a little bit of hamstring activation. Let's dissect and break down the actual hip pattern. So you might have seen me do this one before if you've tuned into my videos, but this one's gonna give you also a nice little quad stretch. However, more importantly, it's gonna teach you the hip mechanics. And let's actually tie in some because we wanna honor the fact that our hips are shifting from side to side. Like I said, there's a lot of posture symmetry involved. What are we doing to really maximize on all of our movements, up and down, side to side, and rotation? So this is going to sort of incorporate everything into the hip hinge, okay? And get you some little bit of hip activation. So I want you to sit back on your heel, feel that stretch in the quad, rotate everything into that hip, extend through, bring this elbow back, reach forward with that arm. Okay, you should lock this hip out and that should be fully engaged. Okay, sit back, breathe in, get that quad stretch, load up, extend all the way through. Sit back, and you should be on the toe. Make sure you guys can see on the toe of your foot. So you're getting a nice little Achilles stretch too. Sit back, extend. One more. Make sure you really extend all the way through with your hip. That is crucial, crucial. One more. Isolated, one side, one hip at a time, teaching you to extend all the way. That's where you can often cheat if you're going just two hips at the same time. You might not be going all the way with one side, but you got it if you truly want to get your hips shifting from side to side. Okay, let's go to the other side. Left side, same thing. Sit back on your heel, rotate, torque into that hip, and then extend. Pull this elbow back. That's going to help further extend your hip. And because we are, at the end of the day, humans that walk, and we have to rotate to walk. So maximize on these rotations right here. Good, 3 more. Sit back. Get that nice quad stretch, Achilles stretch. Extend. Pull that elbow back. 1 more. Step back. Extend. Good. Okay. So 5 or so hip hinges. Maybe you didn't feel much because we don't have a lot of pressure loading anything or anything like that loading the hip. So we're going to actually progress that. Don't worry. We're definitely going to move that into more intensity exercises. That's a good place to start with because you're getting a nice stretch and you're also teaching that hip to load. That's what we mean by load, is to coil up, fold, hinge, whatever you want to call it. But the more we can do that, the more we'll be able to bear weight on that side, and you're pulling the hip to that side. Then go to the other side, because often that is what we're missing. And usually then, because our hip doesn't load well, the knee has to load much more, and that puts a lot more pressure on the knee. So what is a better way to get a little bit more intense loading of this hip and get it firing a little bit better, a little bit working a little bit harder. Let's go into our next move. This is really crucial for teaching you good hip strength and also integrating with a little bit of core. I think it's also, this is a winner gain, basically one of the best exercises that we are not doing, just because it teaches this good unilateral hip strength, integrates it with core. It's working lateralization, your lateral planes, which is kind of what we have a problem with when we're talking about hip alignment affecting knee pain. So this one's a winner. I love it. And you've probably seen me do it before, but that's okay. Again, it's all about the message and how we're trying to relay and connect these dots to getting a little bit more of a balanced human being. That's usually what we're missing when there's pain. Okay, so just this camera. You might need a towel or something for your elbow, but it's not absolutely necessary. Okay, this is a side bridge, hip hinge. Okay, get into a side bridge position, but with your knees bent, okay? Top leg, back, okay? So they're both bent, all right? Okay, you're gonna brace the bottom knee and shin into the floor and brace your arm into the pad or the floor. And we're gonna extend our hip up and forward, okay? We're gonna pattern everything together into a running pattern. So as we do that, we're gonna bring our knee forward and we're gonna drive this arm back. That's actually gonna help, but let's take those away and just show you what the hip hinge looks like. So we'll go hand on the hip, stack your knees, hips forward. Pretty basic. Hips forward. Pretty basic. Fold and forward. Fold, forward. Good. Now let's put it all together. This makes it a lot harder. And one more. That's solid pressure on that hip, solid loading, and you got a nice little knee swing, activating some healthy hip flexion right there, and you've got the arm pulling back, activating rotation. These are all missing links that we're not part of our missing reciprocation, that we not have mechanically flowing throughout our body. So the more you can train and kind of, how can I say, mimic these running patterns or alternating patterns, we're going to do our body a lot of favors, and we're going to clean up a lot of those knots and different alignment issues, because that's sometimes really what we're missing. Not to say that it's a running thing that we're missing, it's just these healthy, balanced out, reciprocating patterns. So let's go into the other side. Okay, let's start with the easy. Stack your knees, hands on the hip, hips forward, back down to the floor nice and softly. Hips forward, back down to the floor softly. One more. Softly. Okay, top leg back and pull that elbow back, knee up. Hips down to the floor. Elbow back, knee up. Hips down to the floor. We'll go one more. Elbow back, knee up. Hips down to the floor. Really control how your hips go down to the floor, because that is just going to be more hip loading. Okay, so moving on. What we got next? So centering ourselves. Okay, this is a big one. Okay, so let's now apply this into the upright position, because ultimately that is what we're striding to be in, and yet that is where it goes wrong. Because sometimes we take the upright position on our feet for granted. We don't realize how difficult it is, and our body cheats to get whatever's done. That cheating is often what leads to different pains and aches and whatnot. So sometimes the body needs a little refresher of how to center itself from one side to the other, because that's when you're gonna really feel your leg muscles engage a lot better. So this is what I mean by centering, and this is going to ultimately progress to the next exercise. Okay. So, okay. So we're going to stand one leg behind the other, okay? And I want you to really pull everything over this leg. And actually, I am going to use a book for this, because this helps to be a little bit off the ground. So if you want to grab a 2-inch block or whatever, grab that, okay? Because we're going to center ourselves on this raised object. So stand on the raised object, so you should already feel like you have to adjust your center of balance slightly, okay? We can be on the toe of the back leg, but watch how you see how I'm not truly over my left leg. So what we want to do here is make sure we reach for that toe and get your nose over your toe. Now I'm kind of getting there. And now we're going to check the sternum. Is the sternum also in line with the knee? There it is. So now, with those little minute adjustments, okay, of this, how I'm reaching for that big toe, my nose, my sternum, my knee, and my heel all making a nice straight line. In fact, I can even see from my video that I can go a little bit further. Good, good. We're just gonna hold this there, straighten both your arms and just sort of reach down for the ground. And we're just gonna hold yourself. Hopefully you have a slight knee bend. So I'm gonna go also from the side here. I have a slight knee bend. I'm just rested on this leg. Rested. Good, good. All right, okay, let's see if you go the other way. Okay, center yourself. Okay, and hopefully out of this, you should feel a slight little hip stretch. If you're feeling that, that is good. Then you are getting just over that sort of center point line. So reach and reach, nose, sternum, knee, heel, all in line. Do you feel your hips stretch? I do. So we're in a good place right here. Okay? You should feel your whole foot, but most importantly, you should feel your heel. Do you feel all that? Do you feel your heel? Can you make that straight line from your knee through your midsection to your nose? Good. And I also feel a little bit of your hip burning, and that is also a good thing. Let's go one more time. I'm gonna go one more time to do this left side, because I know that's my weak side, just to get a little bit of alternation. So we'll go back and forth. Okay, so stand on that object. Make sure your toes aren't actually on that object. That's gonna help you actually. It's gonna help you not grasp and feel your heel a little bit more. Reach your arm down, bend your knee slightly, feel that hip stretch, center your nose over your knee with your sternum. Good, and just hold it there. Even holding this is just going to be somewhat healthy for your hip mechanics, just to get used to this position. Okay, you can go 30 seconds or 5 nice deep breaths, and you should feel all your leg muscles kind of activating. I got your inner thigh working, I got my hamstring working, and I got a little bit of my hip working, all because I'm truly centered over this leg. Okay. Now, if your knee's hurting, stop. Number one. Hopefully, by doing this, actually, hopefully, that's a hack to not getting your knee to hurt. See, so hopefully. Usually though, that's probably because again, that quad's sort of pressuring up. So maybe this exercise might have been a little bit too advanced, but this next one is a little bit more user-friendly, let's say. However, the one we just did sort of will prep you for it. We got 2 more things and then that's it. I'll get you going, and hopefully this routine will help you for your knee pain. So the next one let's get this hip shifting and loading a little bit better with each step. So what we just did is found the center part, our center. So now what we're gonna do is basically mobilize some of these hip movements. So what we're gonna do is take that step forward, just sort of be in that same position, okay? You're gonna plant your back heel, all right? And we're just gonna reach forward, and I want you to shift your hips as far to the side as possible, and then bring it back. And actually we're gonna square our feet up. So we're gonna step forward, shift your hips to the side, reach forward, and then come back. Okay, again, step, shift, reach forward, shift to the side, get that nice little hip loading to the side, and back. One more. Step, shift, reach. The reach just facilitates more of this rotation, which will facilitate more of this shift. One arm back, one arm forward. Keep both your feet planted. Come back to center. We'll go one more, because I know it's a lot. Step, keep your feet flat. Reach, one arm back, one arm forward. As much as you can, and rotate your hips into your thigh. Let your hips shift out to the side and stretch. Come back to the center. Let's go 6 on this other side, and then we're gonna bring it home with some nice hip forward progression, hip activation. So keeping your feet planted, step, reach one arm back, one arm forward, load your hip all the way to the side. Keep your feet planted, come back to center, okay? Step, feet planted, check. Reach, reach, check. Hip shift, check. Come all the way back to being center, straight line. Step, feet are planted, reach and reach. Shift those hips. Make sure that you're in a nice curve shape. Come back to center. Go 2 more. Step, reach and reach. Shift as you rotate into your hips. Unwind. Last one. Step, shift. Good. All right. Nice. And now how are we putting that together? Well, with a nice hip extension, single leg, RDL, whatever you want to call it. But we're now basically going to teach you from that loaded position, which we hopefully know how to accept. And we have some hamstrings that are now activated, ready to ground and bring your hip into that position. We've taught you how to hip hinge. We've put you into a really glute loaded, tested position in your side plank to really make sure that hip knows how to work and load and extend in and out. Now we've functionally put you upright and taught you how to accept these centering positions with all of that hopefully working. Now let's just make sure we complete the puzzle. We basically taken a step and loaded our hip into our leg. Now we're going to extend up. So you're going to keep one leg foot down. Make sure you get your nose over toe. I want this leg shin bone straight, hip back, nose over toe. Okay, I want you reaching for your toe. Okay, okay. On the toe of your back leg now, you don't have to be flat foot. I want you to just drive your knee up, extend all the way up. Step back softly, softly. Reach for that toe, reach for that toe. Extend up. Step back softly. Reach for that toe. 3 more. Extend up. Make sure you're nice straight line from your heel to your head. Reach back softly, reach for that toe. And let's go 2 more. Reach back softly, 1 more. Make sure you reach for that toe so that you shift everything over this leg. Here, back, softly. Last side, and then we'll be done. Here we go, I'll go head on this time. So on the toe of your back leg, center everything over this leg, get that nice arm reach, and here we go, extend up, step back softly as possible. Pretend you're stepping on ice backwards and you don't want to break it. Reach here, extend up, reach as to load into this hip. Extend out of it, reach to load into the hip. Two more, extend out of it, load. Last one, extend out of it, and load back down. Bingo, there we go. That's what we got for you. So, just to recap what we got here. So, just to recap, basically, you got overuse of the quads, more than likely, and you've got alignment issues of your knee, whether it's the kneecap, hip, or even the front to back sort of alignment. That's sort of hip as well, but it doesn't matter. Some kind of alignment. Alignment issues usually stem from overuse, dominancy, and bones, things, or joints, postures being stuck to a particular side. Therefore, you got pain of overuse, maybe of that knee joint, or you might even have pain on the knee of the other side because you're so centered over to that one opposing side. That bad knee never gets its true, even balanced state. So it's always working a little bit harder. So, what are our takeaways from today? Manage your knee pain with foam rolling. Don't obsessively over foam roll your IT band if it's causing problems, because that's usually some hip imbalances. Then address the hip hinge, teach yourself how to hip hinge. We've got hip loading in a side position, like I said, giving you some nice hip strength in the side position. Center yourself in a standing position, truly loading yourself over that standing position and being able to drive out of it. You've got to be able to do both things in that upright position for our knee pain to go away. You got to be able to stand on one leg, load over that leg, explode, extend out of that leg, onto the other leg, load over that leg, extend and explode out of that, back to the first one again. Where it goes wrong is somewhere in that ABA, there's a weakness. And that's what hopefully my little program here will kind of tweak and give you some relief on. If you got any questions, shoot me them in the comments. I'm gonna check the Instagram live questions real quick. And don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube page, Big Mish Movement. And don't forget to follow along and send me any message if you want me to cover any topics or anything like that. I'm here to guide you through movement so that you can enjoy it, be focused, give lots of effort, reach all your goals, and most importantly, get joy out of movement, because that's what we're here, we should be enjoying our movement. So let me just check these Instagram questions. I know my guy Matt has been firing away. So there was some drills to train, improve acceleration, deceleration abilities. Well, hamstrings, hips. It starts with that. Hamstring, hips. You can't worry about going fast until you know how to ground and slow down. And even with the best of the best athletes who are naturally fast, their problem is still they don't know how to ground and slow down, and so they're likely to injure themselves. So just getting good hip strength, good hamstring strength. I answered your question about the glute med strengthening for knee pain. Yes, it helps, but it's usually just one part of the piece. So yeah, glute med was initially thought, and that's actually more of the glute med is going to be a nice pain reliever to IT band tension, because that's what it's attached to. However, in general, if you've got knee pain, alignment issues, you're gonna need more than a glute med to help you. And that's where centering and all that is, it's gonna really test everybody to really do their part. Is your glute med doing your part? Is your glute max doing its part? Is your adductor hamstring doing its part? because all those guys kind of have to do their part. So that answers about the glute med. No disrespect to the glute med. It's a very important muscle, but it's just not the be all and all for knee pain. There's other things that are gonna come into play. It's just probably a very good starting place. And I covered the glute med in the side bridge hip extension position. The only benefit of stretching, placebo effect, somewhat. Movement is better. Movement is much better. Stretching actually, yeah, passively stretching a muscle kills its ability to fire. So therefore, yeah, you feels good and you haven't really gotten anywhere out of it because you've made it weaker technically. Mat firing again, a difference between dynamics and static stretching. What are pros and cons? I don't like dynamic stretching the way it is, but yes, you definitely want to move through your stretched positions because muscles should elongate and contract, go back and forth, back and forth. You don't want it stuck in a particular state for an extended period of time because that's going to cause you problems, whether it's on the tension side or on the lengthen side. So that's the problem with stretching. Dynamic stretching is more of the idea. I just don't like your traditional dynamic stretching exercises. If you want more advanced dynamic stretching, I would look into FRC, functional range conditioning. Follow any of those practitioners, or I do a lot of their stuff too, because that's more of what you want to go. Oh, moving on, another one from Matt. Is it healthy to ice my kneecap? Clicks, makes popping noises. Oh, no, not ice. Is it healthy if my kneecap makes popping? It is not healthy. It is ultimately some kind of, it could be gas bubbles, we don't really know, or it could be some tendon ligaments popping off the joints. Ultimately, you are not centered, and that is more than likely if you're a normal human being to not be centered. So go through my exercises and try to establish on one side versus the other side, what you call it, reciprocation, alternation, ambidexterity, bystantialness, whatever you want to call it. The more you can dial into that, the more that's going to help your knee pain. Another one from Matt. Should long ground contact time exercise be used to produce force and short? Exactly, yes. Long ground contact time exercises be used for force. Short ground contact time be used to build elasticity. You do need both, but force is probably the more important one. Besides deadlift, kettlebell swings, what other exercises train hamstrings, hip extensors? I just went through one. Nordic curls or Nordic drops. Look into that. It's a great one for hamstrings, regardless of your abilities. So everyone should be able to at least be able to do a Nordic drop, activate their hamstrings into a squeeze and not get a cramp. Those are probably it. It's tough to strain hamstrings, but so long as you stay consistent and activate them, you'll get a lot of work with most leg exercises. The problem is most of us don't have activated hamstrings, and so they're not getting their fair share in leg exercises. For all exercises, should you inhale and concentric and exhale and eccentric? No, or the other way around. You want to exhale and concentric, inhale as you go into eccentric. Or certain lifts, you exhale for both and you breathe in at the top. It really depends. Two more from men. Oh, 3, 4, wow. How do you prevent Achilles tendonitis? I'm going to go into feet another time, brother. And I answered your previous questions, and there you go, hopefully. Oh, there we go. I pretty much answered everything there. I'll go into feet another time, Matt. Just tune in for one of those. Thank you for everyone who tuned in. I appreciate you guys, and we'll see you next time. Bye for now. Take care.